What's up, boys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm gonna be teaching you guys the BOAR bus against Protoss. You'll figure out the name by the end of the video why it's called that. Don't worry about it. Anyway, like a week ago, a friend sent me a replay of a TVP build he invented called the BOAR bus, and I ended up getting a lot of wins with it. Honestly, it's mostly a meme build, but I did win a lot with it, and I know you guys don't necessarily like super long games against Protoss, so if I can give you guys another option to end the game fast, that would be nice. Basically, what this build is going to be is very simply set at one base hull in. There's a little bit of mind game involved that I'll be explaining as we go. But for the most part, there's not going to be too much to this build. Like, it's all just going to be the execution and remembering the builder and stuff. It's not going to be super complicated, I hope. So definitely approved for everyone. So we're going to start off with a 16 barracks and a 16 gas. And then we're going to go for a second gas at 17. Here I made it late once again. How do I always choose the replays where I make such mistakes for my guides? My bad, I guess. A little thing I want to add is that this build works very well together with my last TVP build, the Solid S Steel video, because it just serves for a really nice mind game. You're gonna see why. This is a little trick I did. You don't necessarily have to do this, but if you want to, you can wall off extra fast just to add to the mind games. The most standard way to do this build is just to use this SCV to make the depot. But if you want to make it even more confusing for your opponent, you can do it like this. You just start a depot and then use the SCV to scout after without actually keeping it there. One thing I can say is that even though this is not the standard, this is good against cheesier Protoss players. If you play on a ladder, on an MMR where you get cheesed a lot, it's probably better to make the depot and go for the SCV scout than not to do it. Because even if you're playing a one-base build, going up against one-base Protoss stuff is still pretty scary. So if you play against cheesy players a lot, or if you just play against a specific player you know is cheesy, I would recommend going for the wall-off and for the SCV scout. If you don't play against cheesers a lot, you don't have to SCV scout at all. It's not necessary with this build. So anyway, we're going to go for a Reaper first. This still pretty much exactly looks like the macro TVP build that I posted about a few weeks ago. Then we're going to go for the factory. And the difference between this and the macro build is that we're actually not going to pull off gas here. So we're actually going to keep 3 on each. Now you would think this just looks like a one-base attack already from the Protoss perspective. But with the double gas opener meta, this actually could be anything from the Protoss POV so far. Like my last build that I posted, like I said, you open with 2 Reapers and a wall in handy and then you just play a macro game after. So even though you have a wall off, Protoss still cannot really know what is going on at this point. Then when you have the money for it, basically you can pop a number of barracks. Honestly, every time I did this build, I made this barracks too late. So I guess it doesn't really matter if you're late on it. But obviously, as soon as you have money, try to build it. As soon as you have the minerals. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go for 2 Reapers and 1 Hellion. This is going to be your harassment, your scouting squad. And you're going to follow it up with a starport and a react on the barracks. Now, normally, just a quick adaptation for you guys. If you don't SCV scout, you have to use these units to scout around a little bit. Scout for like a Stargate, a Proxy Gate and stuff. But since I actually SCV scouted, I know that he has a Nexus, so I don't have to worry about anything. So I'm just keeping them at the front to deal with an Adept. Because that's the only thing that could be annoying right now. I feel like if they don't go for an Adept like this, you're already in a really good spot. Because they're going to have a hard time scouting that you're actually on one base, right? And yeah, you're going to see that in his build later because he will end up playing pretty greedy. So after the Helen, you make a tech lab on the factory. And this second barracks is going to go without add-ons. It's just going to be making pure Marines. Then these 3 units, usually you would move out with them, try to catch the Adept. But I think in this game I wasn't quite sure if there was an Adept coming or where it was. So I just played it safe and decided to deny scouting. This is a good move to do if you think your opponent has like a probe hidden. Because you just, you can't really deny the Adept scout. Like if they go, especially if they come with 2 Adepts, they'll be able to shade in so you have no base. But you might as well try to deny as much scouting as you can. Though it is also totally fine to go across with these units. You could wait until you have Marines as well. That's no big deal. And what you're going to do at home is very simple. Once again, there's not too much strategy involved here. You're just going to be making 3 Marines at a time with a tank and a Viking. Now, I do have to admit, I didn't experiment too much with making different units from the starport. I think you probably could get a Banshee out or maybe a Medevac, But I think Vikings are just the safest way to do it. It's also the best option if you're blind, because it counters a Stargate. But something people don't know is that Vikings Landed also do a lot of bonus damage to Stalker, so they're good in complement to your push anyway. Now, obviously, I can't get anything done here, but there's nothing really to be scared of. One thing this build loses to, like pretty much instantly, is DTs. So that's one thing to consider as well if you play against a lot of DTs. Probably might not want to do this build. Against anything else so far, it actually seems surprisingly fine. I didn't think I was gonna win too many games with this push, but I actually did win a lot of games. And for me, I think it's mostly the mind games of the double gas macro build. Because most players, most Protoss players, I've done that build so many times. If they will see me play one base, make 2 Reapers in a Hellion, they just assume I'm going for a macro game. So definitely do consider that part, that if you learn this build, you should probably learn the macro version as well, so you can really play on those mind games. If you play an opponent on the ladder multiple times, or maybe if you play a tournament in a best of 3, those will be really good to go together. Now, typically, I would wait for 3 tanks to move out. You can probably move out with 2 tanks as well, but I just don't think it does quite as much punch. One cool rule, by the way, actually, is that 3 tanks is the magic number to fight against an overcharged battery. If you have 2 tanks against a unit in an overcharged battery, they will die very slowly. Like, they will only get a little bit of actual damage on the HP before it being healed again by the battery. If you have 3 tanks, you will actually pretty much kill the units in 1 or 2 volleys, even with an overcharged battery, which is really nice. Now, yeah, the push is very simple. Like, you're going to go with 3 tanks, you have 3 Vikings, and you're going to pull 6 SCVs. Oh, actually, that's 5. Yeah, I always pull 6 SCVs. You know, this is, once again, it's not really a magic number. You could probably pull 5 as well, or 7. But for some reason, I started doing 6, and then, yeah, I kept pulling 6. Now, this game is going to go quite simple for me, because once again, the mind games just turned into effect. He made Stalkers, because Adepts are kind of tricky to make work against 2 Reaper, 1 Hellion early on. And he just imagined I was playing a macro game. So he's just gonna die. And this is what a lot of my games look like. Honestly, I expect your games to go a lot harder than this. So instead of really just walking in here and sieging, the best option is probably to siege a bit back here. You know, use the terrain here, siege a bit back, make a bunker. I've had a lot of games with this where the Protoss is really prepared. And you actually have to start making a big siege. So instead of just going in, you would make a contain. Sometimes I would even have to make up to 4 bunkers. Just as long as you kill that natural, there's nothing really to worry about. And another reason to wait for 3 tanks, by the way, is that if they go for Blink, Blink is going to finish anyway, no matter if you go with 2 or 3 tanks. And it's just a little bit easier for him to blink on 2 tanks and snipe 1 than with 3. Because if you actually blink on 3 tanks, you are probably going to lose all your Stalkers, because it's just too much damage output. As you can see here, the Vikings are really strong on their own against the Stalker. I don't know how much damage they do exactly. Don't think I can see that anywhere. But it should be a lot anyway. They also 2-shot probe, so it's at least 20. I think it should be 24. One thing I would recommend is to not get overconfident with your units. Like, it's pretty easy to be winning and just think like, I can unsiege aim of this, no biggie, it's easy. But I would still always siege your units, because with a 1 base all-in, you don't actually get that many reinforcements. So, you know, siege 1 tank here if you can, get 1 down here, stuff like that. If the Protoss kills your army, even if they're on 1 base, they will still be in a good spot most likely. So yeah, it's just a very simple 1 base all-in, like I said. It started with a meme build, what I won a lot, so I wanted to share it with you guys. And yeah, by now, if you guys don't get why it's the BOAR bus, then I can't help you, yo. You might be able to post it in the comments. I'm sure someone will make up a nice story about why it's called the BOAR bus. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And see you guys next time. Adios.